Morning. Mic check. How are you doing, y'all? This is Daily Inspiration, Episode 3, Love Over Fear. For those of you who don't know about love over fear, love and fear can encompass all of human emotions. Ask yourself what you're feeling right now. Ask yourself, am I feeling courage or am I feeling anxiety? Am I feeling jealousy or am I feeling trust? Am I feeling scarcity or am I feeling abundant? And every one of those, when you answer honestly, can be classified under the heading of love or fear. So today we're going to talk about kindness versus anger. So being angry with somebody, let's see. Well, compassion and kindness. When I think of anger, and I think of the opposite of anger, I think of compassion. But kindness sort of comes along with it. You know, anytime you think about like the Dalai Lama, right? Like kindness, compassion, joy. Those are the sort of the things that I associate with like the Dalai Lama. So anytime I think of compassion and kindness, those are hand in hand. Anger, man, this is something that it has really been a part of American culture, I think, for a very long time. Just look at our long-standing history of war. Look at our entertainment. Our entertainment is violence. You know, violent movies, violent TV shows, UFC, MMA. It's sort of stepped out of the realm of being a negative or fear-based emotion and become entertainment. And I'm not saying like if anybody knows me, I mean I love my share of games and violent movies. A lot of the time it's study as a peacemaker just to see like what I'm up against, and sometimes I just want to mentally check out and watch big explosions and flashy lights and things like that. The issue is we become desensitized and we as humans start to emulate that behavior. And instead of us recognizing that those things are for entertainment, those are not real. That's not how life is supposed to be. When we stop making that discernment between entertainment and reality, then it makes its way into our life and then creates some real issues. When we're dealing with friends and family and loved ones and coworkers, it's so easy to get into a space of anger. It usually starts with some sort of judgment and then moves into frustration and then moves into rage. And then over time, it can be hate. It can develop into hate, evolve into like one of the lowest vibrations of energy that humans exhibit. So when we treat people with anger, that is the ripple, that is the energy we're putting out into the universe. And we can't really expect to get anything different back, right? So if we really want, if we're trying to create a life of peace and love and compassion and kindness, we can't do it from a space of anger. I know that sounds like redundant, sounds almost stupid to state, but ask yourself how many times do you respond to situations with anger and expect to get positive results. Any parents out there? I mean, it's so easy to get frustrated by our children, right? So, and a lot of the time, it's like, you got to time them out or say something to get their attention. And it's not always a nice thing. And, I know from personal experience, like, when I lose my temper, like, I don't feel good. I don't feel good about that. I don't want that to be the way that I get results. I'm not the Hulk. Do we really, as a person and as a society, want to be the Hulk? Meaning, do we want rage and anger to be the way that we get our results in life? I don't want to use that energy. And especially not to get positive results in my life. It was a cool, beautiful day. So that's fear, right? Anger is fear. Another thing is, like, men, we don't like to be afraid. It makes us feel powerless. And not only do we like to feel power, but society has a lot of expectations of us being powerful. Like, we're the guys that take care of stuff. We're the ones who blow the hole in the mountain so we can put the train track down. We're the ones that we're supposed to fight off the wolves and the snakes, when they come to hurt our families in our teepees and things like that. So not only is it an internal belief, but it's an externally reinforced belief that men are supposed to be strong. And when we feel scared, it's easy to shift into anger because we're not used to being scared. We don't like being scared. It makes us feel vulnerable. So those are some things that we get to recognize. One thing that you'll see on, like, my websites and my t-shirts and my messages often is E times A equals C. E times A equals C. It means energy times action equals creation. Means the energy that we act on, whether it's love or fear, determines the nature of our results. So if I want a relationship that is full of trust and kindness and patience, then I can't come from the space of mistrust and anger and impatience. Now, let me argue really quick the pessimist side of this. And I'm going to say, you know what? Unfortunately, I'm going to agree with you on one thing. Sometimes you can use negative energy to get what you want. You can be the victim or you can be the aggressor, and the other party will back down and they'll give you what you want. Again, I'm going to go back to my point before, is that really where you want your results in your life to come from. So let's switch over to kindness and compassion. It takes just as much energy to be kind as it does to be violent. It's not glorified in our country. It's not always the norm. Now, some of us that have lived in nurturing homes, like I grew up in a pretty violent household. So I don't want to just use my ideas or my perspective and project them on the world and say everybody grew up in violence. But some of us, there's a lot of us that grow up in violent, abusive homes. And that becomes a behavior that we mirror as we get older. Some of us have grown up with very kind and compassionate, giving people. I live in Utah and land of the Mormons, and I can tell you firsthand, I'm not LDS, but man, are they some family-loving people. They are some of the most giving, compassionate, kindest, family-oriented people I've ever seen. And I often wonder what I would have been like had I been raised in that environment, where I didn't have to spend half my life in darkness learning that the light is the answer. But imagine if I was raised in that space. Sometimes kindness is harder. Sometimes compassion is hard because we're humans and we make assumptions and we don't always see the other side of the story. We don't see why the other person is the way they are. So it's easy to separate ourselves and say, well, that's not me and that's not my problem. And that's the opposite of compassion. Compassion says we're all connected and it is my problem somehow. I may not have been the one to cause it, but I might be able to be the one to help solve it or come up with the solution. Some people believe that if you have the power and you have the knowledge, that you have a responsibility to be compassionate and help other people. What about compassion for the self? Buddha says that compassion that doesn't include yourself is incomplete. How many times have we been outward focused and give, and kind, but not to ourselves? Compassionate to others, but not holding a healthy, loving boundary for ourselves. How many times do we give all of our apples away and don't keep one for ourselves? So if it wasn't for compassion, now here's another thing. I know that humans are capable of it because our society would have not lived for more than 10 years if we didn't have compassion. If we truly lived in a majority based violent society who was just out for gain and greed and stuff like that, then we would have never made it as, the last whatever 1,000, 5, 10, 40,000 years, however long you want to believe we've been on this earth. We wouldn't have made it that far. Compassion, kindness, that is not, it's not a frou-frou, fluffy, lovey thing. That's a part of our survival. Without that, parents wouldn't feed us and people wouldn't save orphans and the entire medical facility or industry wouldn't even exist. We would just operate like animals and it's like, oh, just let the weak die. So we got to ask ourselves, which side of the fence do we want to live on? How much energy, how much of fear do you want to act on, and how much of that do you want to create? And how much of love do you want to act on, and how much of that do you want to create? Anytime you see a creation that is full of chaos and pain and disconnect, you can trace it back. You can do that equation backwards, and you can see when you acted on fear. You can trace it back to a fear-based energy. Anytime you see anything that's healthy and sustainable and full of light and joy, you can trace it back to see what energy you acted on and which vibration of love that was. E times A equals C, that's my law of creation, that's my law of the human condition or human creation, whatever you want to call it. The shift equation, which is actually going to be in my second book. The whole book is going to be about basically what we're talking about in this video series. And at the end of the day, remember, this is not me preaching to you, telling you how to live your life. This is me observing universal laws that I have no control over. But once I observe and once you observe, you're going to see these in play, and you're going to be left with what you have every single day, and that's a choice. You are empowered to choose what you want to be and what you want to create. So my motivation or my inspiration for today and my challenge to you is, at least one time before you step into a space of judgment, frustration, or anger, ask yourself if kindness or compassion would serve you better in this one instance. Ask yourself if you've been responding to a particular situation that's been happening over and over and over again, and see if today you can break the cycle with that one thing by shifting into kindness or compassion versus, anger or trying more anger. Well, I wasn't angry enough last time. Maybe I need to be more this time. And I challenge you to be compassionate towards yourself and speak positively to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself. How many times have you coached some other person into not hating themselves or not hating their life, and then turned around and talked badly to yourself? I used to say this all the time. I was nice to everybody but me. I always let everybody off the hook, but then I would put my own feet to the fire and be like, well, you didn't do this good enough. You didn't do that good enough. And it's like, excuse my language, but just stop being an asshole to yourself just for one day and see what happens. Be that same loving, kind coach that you would be to your friend, be it to yourself today, and see what happens. Subscribe to my channel. Zoe the Peacemaker, published author, coach, shaman, snowboarder, lover. Namaste. Inner peace out.